Rabbi, you got a statement about the morality of cheating in baseball?
Yeah. That's the biggest scandal in the country right now.
Well, if you look, I saw some statistics last night on 2017 about Houston at home and Houston on the road in the playoffs that year.
Altuve, the guy Altuve,
The one with the
Altuve who bats 120 on the road and 420 in the United
and Scott Morris has said, you know, he doesn't use electronic devices, he doesn't cheat by electronic devices.
He loved it. That's great.
CC Sabathia, the Yankees, when they played in this, you know, in the division champion, the ALCS, they won 4 games at Houston, 2 of which by 1 run. Sabathia said if you steal 1 series, that could be the difference between winning and losing, right? And he was like on a podcast, just 4-letter epithets.
Wouldn't want to do it on a Monday morning. Perfect. Thank you.
figure out why they were able to get the scorers how they
Well, not, you know, Darvish, Game 7 was a Dodgers game.
3, 4, and 5.
Of course.
Dodgers and 6.
You know, I said the Yankees lost 4 in Houston, 2 by 1 run. Sad.
Yeah. It's a slider. Good morning. I put down your day. Is she in town? Where is she? All right, so tell them when they come in. They've seen me do the wedding, but only when they're seeing it. Well, that one worked out well. You don't want to go back that place? Remember that? No, we got one here. Remember that? I don't know. Yeah, but they get to the airport. Right? That was so funny. We'll wait for flight 7 for L. All right, good morning, everyone. Shabbat shalom. So let's get the really important things out of the way first. There was a problem with the gas line to the synagogue, and they had to cut it off. So there's no heat in the room today. There's no heat in the whole shul today. Okay? There's a separate line runs to the kitchen, so the kugel will be warm. Okay? But you won't be. Okay? So keep your coat on if you need to. It might be best just to leave the door open, only because it's going to get warm outside. It's supposed to go up to 70 today outside. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Shirley's in charge of that. So we just don't have heat. So we can play with the thermostat, as is our tradition. But in the tradition of the Babylonian Talmud, good skeleton. It's not going to do nothing for us today.
Maybe we need more hot air.
More hot air. Yeah, well. This morning, following our learning, I'm sorry, I just started schmoozing, that's all. People at home don't really care about the thermostat anyway. Okay, people at home, we welcome them. This morning, following our learning, you have a wonderful young person's bat mitzvah in the synagogue, plus half a dozen other minyanim. This morning, we are blessed with a wonderful scholar in residence, Rabbi Jonathan Slater, is a dear friend and a profound, profound teacher. And he's going to be learning with us in a few minutes. Following our learning in here, the meditation group is going to be meeting with Rabbi Slater to do a meditation service and then some learning with him. And you're all welcome to just stick around and do that, or you can come into the sanctuary for the more traditional service. Then we'll have the traditional enchilada lunch, as is dictated by the, is it kugel? It was lasagna yesterday, but that doesn't mean nothing. I don't know. And then following that, where there's a Shabbat shiur, there's a learning to this morning. Following lunch, it'll be in the youth lounge, in the Zicklin Lieberman Youth Lounge, which is up the hallway, because we have tables there and we can sit and learn on the tables. And we'll do that around 12:30, 12:45, until we finish at around 2 o'clock. Good morning. Come on in. Come on in. You feeling better? Thank God. Thank goodness. I'm glad you're feeling better. Glad you're feeling better. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Come on. Plenty of room. Plenty of room. Plenty of room. Plenty of room. Just be kind. Okay, good. I'm glad you're feeling better, Bill. Good to see you. This coming week is devoted, the entire week is devoted to the community's commitment to social justice. Tomorrow morning in the shul, there's a dozen mitzvah projects happening here in the synagogue for kids, families, and adults. Tomorrow afternoon, there is a huge rally at the Faith Central Baptist Church put on by Bishop Ulmer, who's the leading African-American bishop in Los Angeles. And he's invited the Jewish community to stand together against anti-Semitism, against racism and hate. A bunch of us are going. If you'd like to come with us, we're leaving here at 1:45. There'll be carpool. We're leaving here at 1:45, and the rally starts at 3, and we'll be back here before supper. So everyone's invited to join us for that. Just meet in the parking lot at 1:45. On Monday, there's a group of people going to feed the hungry at Hope of the Valley. If you'd like to do that, find Rabbi Hoffman this morning, or Rabbi Fark. Rabbi Fark is not in the building. Rabbi Hoffman, and he'll tell you where it is, or just come to the synagogue Monday morning. Wednesday night, instead of the College of Jewish Studies, we're having a panel that evening on the problem of homelessness here in Los Angeles, which, as we all know, is a huge problem. And the speakers are the leaders of the county and city homelessness commissions, but the principal speaker is Steve Lopez, who is the columnist for the LA Times, who's written an awful lot about this. So please come and hear Steve on Wednesday night. Okay, and then Friday night, we're going to conclude this week of doing good with a little celebration of Jewish life. Friday night, Cantor Fox is bringing his very dear friend, Cantor Jackie Mendelson, as our guest for the next weekend, speak next weekend. He'll be our scholar next weekend. He'll be doing a concert with his son, Danny, on Friday night after shul. And then Shabbos morning, he'll be davening with us, and then he'll have a shiur with him after shul on Shabbos next week, a chance to speak with one of the great cantors of the generation and talk about the history and the future of cantorial music. So that's a little bit what's going on in the shul. Did I leave anything out? I got everything? Good, good. This morning, it's a real privilege to share our Torah study with one of the great, great teachers. Rabbi Slater was 2 years ahead of me in JTS, which means he's much smarter than me. Spent 100 years as the rabbi of Santa Rosa, California, which is a great center of Torah. And then now is part of the faculty for the Institute of Jewish Spirituality. In all seriousness, he's recognized by all of us, by rabbis and friends, as one of the great authorities and one of the great teachers of Hasidic Judaism, Hasidic texts, and the way that the Hasidic tradition understood the world and understood the Torah. So this morning we're going to ask Rabbi Slater to lead us in some learning. We have a handout, right?
Yeah, might as well. In passing around. That way we won't have to interrupt.
Come on in,
too
come on in,
much.
come on in.
All right.
Plenty of room. Plenty of room, plenty of room.
Here we go.
Thank you.
Oh, right next door, that's great. So, a little bit of this will be repetitious for those who were with me last night. Just to confuse things a little bit, I want to bring us from the first chapter and the beginning verses of Breshit, of Genesis, because we're beginning Shmot, right? So long as we're beginning the second book, might as well go back to the first book. Back there, somebody needs... We're all out.
No, right here. There's a bunch of...
As long as we leave me one. And even before we get to Torah study, right, I want to just bring our attention to our own experience right now. So one question is, who's still cold? Okay? Are you as cold as you were when you walked in? Okay. So now, one of the things to pay attention to, even while we're studying, is every now and then check in with yourself to ask, am I still cold? And am I as cold as I was? Then you can ask yourself the question, I walked in here and it's cold, and somebody was already over there, as I understand, is the minhag of the congregation, that somebody turns it up, somebody turns it down, it goes back and forth. So we're going to adjust the thermostat, right? What does it mean to walk in and say, oh, I've got to adjust the thermostat? That it's unpleasant. And because it's unpleasant, I'm going to change something. So, okay, it's cold. Rabbi, why didn't you do something about it? Well, I can't do anything about it. There's no gas. Can't heat the place up. Well, that's terrible. That's your fault. No, it's not my fault. So, okay, then you have a choice. I can sit in the cold and say, grumpy, grumpy, grumpy. I can sit in the cold and say, it's okay, it's not intolerable. I could say, it's cold here, it's warm at home, I'm going home. Right? And all of that process often happens unconsciously. Right? The grumpy, grumpy, grumpy for sure happens unconsciously. And the blaming happens unconsciously. It happens like that. One of the challenges of living a life that is not constantly either to this or to that, living a life that is in some way balanced, open, welcoming, and joyful, is coming into a relationship with our own experience to know what it is. And even if it's really uncomfortable because it's too cold or it's too hot, which it often becomes, to know that we're choosing one thing or another allows us to say, it's okay. It's not my preference. It doesn't work for me. I'm going to go home, and it's nobody's fault. And even if it is somebody's fault, the next question you can ask is, so if it's their fault, do I have to punish them? Right? Do I have to be critical always of them? Do I have to blame myself if it's not working for me? Over and over, we have the option for how we respond to the conditions of our lives. Practicing meditation in terms of mindfulness. I suspect that many of you have heard mindfulness. It's like the new diet. Right? Everybody's doing it, and they want it to happen like this. Right? Give me a pill. How can I meditate and become enlightened tomorrow? Right? So the practice of meditation is a practice of bringing our attention over and over and over again to our experience in the moment, to what is. Not what is good, not what is bad, not what I like, not what I don't like, but what is. When we discover that it's what I like, we then can simply say, that's wonderful. I appreciate that it's what I like. When it's what I don't like, we also can open to it and say, this is unpleasant, before we go to the thermostat and start fiddling, right? Make it different, right? So we've become so accustomed to conditioning our lives with air conditioning and with heating, with turning up the lights and turning down the lights, with making the music louder, making the music softer, right? Too hot, too cold, adding Cholula, right, or not, Tabasco or not. But sometimes it's just good to say, what does it taste like? What does it really taste like? So that we actually are in our lives. When we walk around and everything takes place up here, and all we do is think about it or react to it, we miss what's actually going on because we're always trying to adjust it. Whereas if we can sit in the moment with our experience and allow it to be what it is, we have the opportunity to then say, I am living my life just as it is. Living life just as it is sometimes is not pleasant. The rabbi, suggested that he walked in, I'm getting older. We are. And my wife quotes her mentor who brought her into the field of her own study and brought her in as a professor at Sarah Lawrence College, with whom she's still in touch. Her mentor has Parkinson's, also getting older. Memory's not so great. Right? Her line is, getting old is not for sissies. Okay? It's hard. Things change. Is that bad? Or is it what is? When we can say it is what is, then in the same moment we can say, what is good right now? What can I enjoy right now? What is it that is still a delight in my life right now? And that's true for anything. It's true even when we're younger. When we're younger, we think that we're invincible. And so when something happens like, I never did this, right? But I'm out running. And I'm not paying attention to the ground in front of me, and I step on a crack, and I twist my ankle, and I have to limp home. Terrible, 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 terrible. I can't run. Or I could say, I can't run. Now what? Oh, I have an hour each morning to read the paper. I have an hour each morning to have a conversation. I have an hour each morning for something that I didn't realize I was missing, and now I can enjoy.
There's room in the front. The bus just came.
I understand.
Yeah, there's room over there, thanks.
Morning, good morning, how are you?
Harold, right here, Harold.
It's not there. So for those of you who just joined us, this is Rabbi Jonathan Slater, Senior Faculty at the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. He's our scholar this weekend, and I've asked him to share our Torah study.
Thank you.
And this is a terrific talk about thermostats. Why they are the enemy of spirituality.
So I have a question right now since we took a break. Who in the past 30 seconds registered that they're cold? Maybe fewer hands. Why? Oh. That's the enemy of mindfulness, is being embarrassed. I'd say, yes?
We adapted.
We adapted, but I'd also suggest because we placed our attention elsewhere, right? You were trying to figure out, what is this guy talking about? And by placing your attention elsewhere, the sensation of cold, which registered as unpleasant, suddenly was no longer prominent. And therefore, it no longer registered in our experience. That's part of meditation and the practice of mindfulness. What's really true? And learning that, in fact, I can place my attention elsewhere and change my experience of the situation is part of the practice. That's an introduction to what I'd like to suggest a piece of this morning's Torah portion offers to us. So we're beginning the book of Shemot, the beginning of Exodus. And so just a quick review. Anybody want to tell me what happens at the beginning of the book of Exodus?
A king arose who did not know Joseph.
Right.
And he decides that, we're a bunch of bad guys that are a threat to him. So he's going to impose tasks, try and There are two women who come out and save the Jews. They get good homes, and then Moses arrives.
And then Moses arrives. And Moses grows up in Pharaoh's palace, right? Remember? But first, his mother protects him for 3 months. She puts him in a teva, in a little ark, right? Places him in the rushes by the side of the river. Pharaoh's daughter comes down, finds him, opens the ark, sees him, right? Hears him crying, sees him, brings him, gives him back to Yocheved as a wet nurse. Ultimately, he grows up in Pharaoh's palace. He goes out to see what's going on with his brethren. He sees a taskmaster, an Egyptian taskmaster, beating an Israelite. He kills the taskmaster and buries him in the sand. Next day, he goes out. Two Israelites are fighting with each other. Right? What are you doing? They say, are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian? Right? Moses says, time to hightail it out of town. Finds his way to Midian, meets Jethro. Jethro gives him Tzipporah as his wife. That's the story. Then he becomes a shepherd, burning bush, God's charge, go to Pharaoh, let my people go, and we begin the whole story. So why do I want to go back? So why do I want to go back to the beginning of Genesis? So let's just take a quick look. All right? In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. The earth was unformed and void, with darkness over the surface of the deep, and a wind of God sweeping over the water. God said, let there be light. And there was light. Then God saw that the light was good. Vayar Elohim et haor ki tov. God saw that the light was good, but immediately, what does that mean, immediately? God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness God called night, and there was evening, there was morning, one day. So what constitutes one day? Light and darkness. Evening and morning, right? Darkness and light, exactly. But why did God immediately, upon seeing that the light was good, why did God separate the light from the darkness? It's a very interesting, verse. Yes.
Well,
Okay.
To be a permanent thing.
To be a
Permanent thing.
a permanent
Something
thing.
permanent.
So God, in order to make it permanent, God had to separate it from the darkness so that it would have substance and would not just be floating around in some way. Hmm? Yes.
Light is interesting. Light takes up light eliminates darkness. And if God didn't separate light from darkness, there couldn't be darkness. So there must be a role for darkness.
You've been practicing meditation?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good. That's great. The rabbis had a slightly different take. So let's take a look at the bottom of the first page. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon taught that very light by which the world was created, a person could stand and see from one end of the world to the other. So this was light that was not necessarily this light. It was light of awareness, which meant that everything was available through that light. Everything was available through that light. Everything was visible. Everything was comprehensible. Everything could be comprehended, could be held by that light. When the Blessed Holy One saw the future deeds of the generation of Enosh, right, where they first began to curse God and engaged in idolatry, and the generation of the flood, that was not so great. And then the generation of the dispersion. What's the generation of dispersion? The Tower of Babel, right? When the people were spread over the face of the earth, that they were all corrupt, God arose and hid that light away from them. This is as Scripture says, their light is withheld from the wicked, and the upraised arm is broken. I don't know why I put Sadiqim there. So, it should be Rishayim, right? Not Sadiqim. Oops. Right, exactly. But I'm not embarrassed. So God saw that light would be used by people in the future for negative purposes. And what did God do? God hid it away for the righteous in the future to come. Right? As it says, God saw that the light was good. Vayar Elohim et haor ki tov. And good signifies the righteous. Hail the just man, the tzaddik, for he shall fare well. Ki tov. Right? Imru tzaddik ki tov. Say of the righteous person that he is good, or he shall fare well. And where do we learn that God hid away from the righteous? The path of the righteous is like radiant sunlight. They see completely, ever brightening. So God hid away that light. What do you think it means that light is hidden away? I mean, we have light, don't we? I mean, We have a skylight, right? Not just the artificial light. We have this light. What does it mean to say that God hid away the light of the first day? How would it be possible to hide it away? How can you hide light? You know, you probably read the stories of Chelm. Yeah.
Wait.
Another myth.
If something abstracts the light, it is out of sight. To illustrate what I mean is that when the Earth rotates, therefore the other side of the Earth would abstract the light. Therefore, for the other side, it is dark.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way that I prehend that.
So in some way, God created something that would obstruct the light. But we have light, right? So what is that light that God created that then we anticipate may be available for the righteous in some time to come? Yeah.
It's light it's godliness, it's God's light, and it's hidden in plain sight. So it can be in a rock, it's there to be pulled out, perceived, and extracted.
Good. So let's turn the page. Right? Where is that light? And now we come to our Torah portion. All right, this is, again, a piece of Midrash, rabbinic lore. Vatar Isha vateled ben vatar Ehu, she saw him, kitovhu, right? Vatera oto kitovhu, she saw him, vatera oto kitovhu, that he was good. So, again, those of you who were with me last night know the question that's coming. Who has seen a baby who's bad? Right? Rosemary's Baby. Oh, Lord. Well, that might actually be part of the story here. So, when she sees, Vatera Oto, she sees him, Kitovhu, that he is good. What kind of good are we talking about? And you want to flip back to page 1. If we look at verse 4, the same verb, Vayar Elohim, just like Vatera Oto, Vayar Elohim et haor, God saw the light, Kitov, that it was good. The same phrase, the same idiom, Kitov. So, it's a problematic phrase. She saw him, Kitovhu, that in some way he's good. What does it mean, Kitovhu? So we have a couple of great interpretations. One is, Rabbi Meir said, his name was Tov. She saw him and she said, I know your name, Tov. Anybody name their kids like that? That's great. We had a list of names when my first child was born. I looked at him, and like every baby, he was lying like this. So I said, Joshua, holding up his hand. Joshua. That's how he got his name. So Yocheved looked at him, saw him in her arms, and she said, "That's your name, Tov." But Rabbi Yoshia says his name was Tovia, or Tuvia. Right? Why does he disagree with Rabbi Meir? It's just a word play. Right? Ki tov hu. Right? Rabbi Yoshia is not satisfied that his name was Tov because he wants to deal with that third word that she saw, Vatera Oto, Ki Tov Hu. And he just tacks on the who, right, as if his name was Tovyahu, right, like Yirmiyahu or Yoshiyahu, right? That the Yahu at the end is not that he's a Yahu, but he has God's name in him. So Tovya, Tovhu, he wants to say God was already connected to Moses with this name Tov or Tovya. But Rabbi Yehuda said he was fit for prophecy. Tov, that he in some way was already connected to God's goodness. And others say he was born circumcised. Perfect. That, it touches on another piece of midrash where the Greeks, the Romans say to the Jews, why do you defile the human body? And in some ways they say it's in order to perfect the human body, that it is to become more whole, that we have to do something ourselves to make us more whole. But here's the part I want to get. The sages say, when Moses was born, the whole house became flooded with light. Because here it says, Vatera Oto Ki Tovhu, she saw that he was good, and elsewhere, where God saw the light, Vayar Elohim et haor Ki Tov. So the sages draw that connection between verse 4 of Genesis and the verses that we're looking at here in Exodus and say, God saw the light, Ki Tov, that it was good. Vatera Oto, Ki Tov, the house was filled with light. It's a wonderful image that the house was filled with light when Moses was born. When the rabbis then make this connection, are they thinking about their own midrash? That in some way there was light that was created on the first day that is different from the sun, the moon, and the stars created on the fourth day. And that light somehow was present when Moses was born. What's the connection? So now we're going to jump to not so much Hasidut, although right this morning we're not going to do Hasidut. I want to take you to that wild book that now is accessible to us all, thanks to Danny Matt, the Zohar. So the Zohar begins by repeating the rabbinic midrash that we read on page 1. God said, let there be light. Rabbi Yochanan said there were two great lights. As it says, Vayhi Or, right? The light came into being from light. God said, Yehi Or, let there be light. Vayhi Or, a second kind of light. Regarding this light, it was said, and it is good, Ki Tov. The Blessed Holy One took this light and hid it away from the righteous in the time to come. The same sort of idea. And that, as Scripture says, Ma Rav Tuvcha Asher Tzafanta L'Yirecha. Right? How good, the great goodness Asher Tzafanta, that you've hidden away for those who reveal you, or revere you, those who take refuge in you. God hid it away, and the sages of the Zohar understand it to say that no one is able to look at that original light. Why? They read the verses very quickly and very, very in a refined manner. Right? God saw the light, and it was good. And God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. God saw, but only God can see that light. That's the first proposition, that the light that God created first was the very first light, was hidden away, and only God can see it initially. But then, God took of this good light and combined it into 32 paths of wisdom and gave that to this world. Okay. What are 32 paths of wisdom? Well, I'll give you one explanation. This comes from the very first Jewish mystical text. And really, people don't quite know when it came into being. The tradition suggests that Abraham wrote it. But it probably is more like 2nd, 3rd century. It's called Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation. And it outlines what are the 32 paths of wisdom. They are 22 letters and 10 sfirot. Like the 10 fingers. The 10 steps of divine emanation from infinite oneness, from that light of creation, into the world that we know of solid things where God is not immediately visible. Right? Because there are things that obstruct the light, like bodies, walls, chairs, right? Things. So the 22 letters, why 22 letters? Because that's what speech is made up of. Language is made up of letters. The 22 letters are how God brings the world into being, through speech. God said, Yehi Or. Speech brings things into being. So the mystical tradition says the way in which the world comes into being and the path of knowledge and wisdom is through language and consciousness. Language and consciousness gave us those 32 paths of wisdom. And we can understand this to refer to, oh, this is great, right? Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral Torah. Right? God gave us access to that light through Torah. Right? And this is considered equal to the whole world, that is, the oral Torah. Then you'll merit the time to come, which is that good which is hidden away. So the Zohar understands the rabbinic midrash that God hid that light away for the righteous in some time to come. Right? Sometime, atid lavo, at the end of the world, when the Messiah comes, sometime else. And the Zohar says, wait a minute, if God hid that light away, how can we actually live? Because that's the light of divine presence. How can we live without God? How can we live in a world where God is obstructed and not present? And they say, oh, God didn't really hide that away in such a way that it's not accessible, but rather God gave us access to it through 32 paths of wisdom, which is Torah. What we're doing right now is how we have access to that original divine light. This process of Torah study is how we have access to that divine light. I'm going to keep talking just for another few minutes as we turn to page 3, because I want to connect you to pieces of liturgy with which you may be familiar. At the top of page 3 is the beginning of the passage from the Zohar that's inserted in our liturgy on Shabbat morning, just before we take out the Torah. So you may not have looked at it because you just know that as soon as we open the ark and sing those opening verses, the cantor and rabbi are going to stand there and they're going to turn to the ark and sing, Be Anarachetz, and you'll sing along. But the beginning of that passage is right here at the top of page 3. Brich Shmei Demare Alma. Right? Praised is the name of the Master of the universe. Brich Kitrach Va'atrach. Praised be your crown and diadem. Yehei Ra'utach. May it be your will. Im amach Yisrael olam. Extend your favor to your people Israel. Ufurkan minach achazeh la'amach bevet mikdashcha. Right? May your redeeming power be revealed to them in your sanctuary. Right? That could be the Beit Mikdash, right? The temple. But the fact that it's written here and inserted into the liturgy as we're taking the Torah out of the ark suggests that your holy place, Beit Mikdashach, is right here, right now, is the synagogue. May your redeeming power, your saving power, be revealed to us. Lamtuye lana mituv nahorach. Extend to us the goodness of your light. Mituv nahorach, which is mitov orcha. Kitov hu, right? Your good light. Ulekabel tzlotana barachamim, and receive our prayers with compassion. Yehi rava kadamach detorich lan chayim betivu. May it be your will to extend our lives with goodness, to lead us in our lives, betivu, in goodness, the same word tov. Ulave ana avdach pekida begot tzadikaya. May we then be counted among us, may we be counted among the tzadikim, the righteous. Who was the light hidden away for? The tzadikim. What are we praying for? That we be counted among the tzadikim. What do we expect then if we are counted among the tzadikim? That we can experience God's light. Where is that light going to come from? It's going to come from Torah. Where did God hide the light? God hid the light in Torah. And the very last piece of liturgy is from the end of the first bracha of Shachrit, which is HaMechadesh b'tuvo b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. You, God, renew the works of creation every day, constantly. Ka'amur, as we read in Psalms, le'oseh orim gdolim, for you who makes the great lights, not made them, but makes the great lights. Kili olam chasto, your love extends to this world. Or chadash al Zion ta'ir, cause a new light to shine upon Zion. V'nizkech hulanu mehera le'oro, may we all merit it. Right? That's the bracha that ends this whole celebration of light, of morning, of sunlight, of the opportunity to act and do in the world. That leads us then to Ahava Rabbah. You've loved us with a great love. How did you love us? Right? Ba'avur avotenu, shabadchu v'cha, v'talamdem chukei chayim, and you taught them laws of life through Torah. Kain techone, right? May you be gracious to us and teach us too from your Torah. Light and Torah. Well, that's an interesting proposition. Light is available to us from Torah. You've been coming here for years for Torah study. How do you experience light from Torah? And now it's time for you to talk. Get ready. How do you experience light from Torah study? Okay.
Actually, I have a question. Wouldn't it have been more efficient just to have given us the light rather than, wouldn't the world work better? Don't we have enough problems? And if we'd had the light to begin rather than, you'll have it eventually. Yeah, look at the mess. Why didn't we just get it to begin with?
So you hear the question? Why did God hide it away? Why wouldn't it have been more efficient just to give it to us right from the beginning?
Is anybody a parent? I mean, wouldn't it be easier for your kids for you to just tell your kids and they would do something? Don't they have to learn it themselves and make, and learn through their own mistakes?
Yeah.
Oh.
You have a better answer or a better question?
Yeah, I have a better answer. This is Bill Baumschweiger. For babies, you give them baby food, Gerber's or whatever, because they don't have teeth. All right? For the enlightened, God's children, all right, the house of Israel, we have to develop mental teeth in order to eat the food. And in that sense, the nutrition is hidden within the food, and you have to have the mental teeth to get to it. The Torah is what we chew, symbolically.
Isn't that great, right? The Torah is mental food, and that's what we chew, and that's one way of getting it. We have another. Then you've already got it.
Light is not darkness or brightness. Here, light means insight. This means the ability to digest the fact or analyze and decide what to do. By reading Torah, we did see that in many, many times when we read, we think something new. This has been there, we have read it many times before, but we see it again. This is the light. This is the insight. This is what it is referring to.
Aha. So light is insight, where we have seen something and seen it, and then there's something new. Lovely.
You have already touched on this at the beginning of your speech, that the light is very powerful, and it meant for good things, but evil people could abuse it and use it for bad things.
So one answer to the question, why did God hide it, is that it would be used for bad things, that it's meant for good and it could be used for bad. Somebody else?
I go back to Adam and Eve. It's like we almost got the light. We could have gotten the light, and then God saw that we're imperfect, and we kind of blew our chance. So now we have to work harder and learn.
So, okay, we blew it in the Garden of Eden, that we are imperfect, and therefore, we have to work for it. It's not a real yeah.
Just a quick comment about your kitov. It can also be read as katav, written. So it goes from God's oral to us to write it down and make it permanent for us.
There we go. It's an interesting thing we talk about the oral Torah, but here we are looking at pieces of paper, reading the words. But now we're talking about it. And that's where that piece of insight. So we're constantly opening it up again to some insight, to something new. Yes?
The issue of hiding the light, actually that allows us to see. I believe in the Zohar, the radiance of God is blinding. And even from a standpoint of physics, I can see that chair is brown because all the other colors are absorbed and are hidden. And so the contrast allows us to make decision. If everything was brilliant, in God's brilliance, we wouldn't see anything.
Yeah. That is the answer to the question. And I think that's something worth pondering just for a moment. Maybe you've had this sort of experience. You went to the beach and sat on a blanket or a chair, closed your eyes, took a little nap, whatever it is. When you opened your eyes, the light, particularly off the sand and the reflection off the ocean, is blinding, and it's as if you don't see anything. Or maybe you went to Montana or North Dakota, and there was a blizzard. And it became so totally white that there was no distinction between tree, road, car, completely gone. That's the image that the mystics have, that God's light, this original light, would not allow for anything else to be present. So why would we want to access it? I disappear. Perhaps it's for insight. But accessing that light could also be what we call a spiritual experience. Right? We are suffering still from the domination of the Enlightenment and the supremacy of the rational over the intuition, over that which is not perceived by the rational mind. We live in a time where we think everything can be solved with an app. Right? But either the app on the phone or some technical application to solve a problem. And may we continue to discover technical solutions to horrible problems. But none of those will solve the problem of being human. Of being human. Right? That we experience pain. That we suffer loss. That we make mistakes and feel embarrassed. That we don't see clearly into our own hearts or minds. The teachings that we've been touching on, and this sense of Torah as an access point to some deeper insight, to some greater awareness by which we can see who we are really as people, not just as these mechanical, physical human beings, but as people with hearts and souls that know a deeper truth of the oneness of that light, that nothing is separate from God, that nothing is separate from anything else, that we are interdependent and part of something greater is what the mystics are pointing us to. That's what Torah is inviting us to. Yes.
In my family, we use constructive interpretations in everything that we can. I'll give you an example. My son was coming home from the airport and called me and said, "Mom, guess what? Something wonderful. They lost my luggage and now they get to deliver it right to my house."
Constructive interpretations. I love it, right? "Mom, guess what? Something wonderful happened. They lost my luggage and they get to deliver it directly to my house. I don't have to schlep it." What if we had the capacity to be with a room that's cold and discover something else rather than being stuck in it being cold? Because I think for the past 40 minutes, you haven't been paying attention to the room being cold. Right? If you touch your hands, I'm sure oh yeah, I'm cold. But it wasn't what was foremost in your mind. There was some place else where you placed your attention for the sake of something new, something different, some expansion of consciousness that isn't constricted to, "Oh, this is terrible. I don't like this. Give me something else." Turn up the heat. The heat is not going to come on. Right? So, there's something wonderful. I get to sit really close to other people and feel their warmth. There are other bodies here. There are other human beings here. And I get to know them and experience that and be close to it. That's the invitation of the text, right? That the house was filled with light when Moses was born, right? That's today's Torah portion. Moses is the representative of Torah, right? Remember, Zichru Torat Moshe Avdi. Remember the Torah of Moses. Moses' Torah. He illuminated the world. He brought that light to us. He shared that light with us. And we continue making that light as we continue to study Torah, gaining insight from the Torah itself, but also gaining insight from our own experience. And so just to go back to that, the beginning, because it's coming on 10, and I know that there are other things going on, that the practice of meditation frees us from habits of mind and heart that keep us stuck in the mundane, to open us instead to the supernal, to the divine, to greater light, which is insight. Insight into what is true. Insight into our own experience in this moment. That this is what is, and I know it. My mother, God bless her, in her last years, picked up a phrase from a friend of hers who, that was her response to "How are you?" She says, "I'm alive, and I know it." Right? How often are we not aware of our own aliveness, but being stuck in traffic, being stuck on a line, stuck in the story that goes round and round of what I like or what I don't like, or what I'm happy about, what I'm unhappy about my disappointments, about my great successes that nobody remembers, about what's going to happen to my life and nobody's here, right? We go round and round with those stories, and we're not aware of I'm alive and I know it. And meditation, as a practice, opens us to insight, which is awareness of each moment, and that is the revelation of that original light, in which we can then see from one end of the world to the other, because we can connect beyond our limited selves to all around us and say, this is what is. And knowing that this is what is as it is, and not having to make it something else immediately, we don't have to turn up the thermostat. As soon as we think it's cold, we can say, okay, what's actually going to go on here? What is happening here? Why is it so cold? Right? The custodian forgot. The cantor forgot. The rabbi forgot. Somebody forgot to put on the heat. I'm going to have to fix it. Instead, I wonder what's going on. I don't think the rabbi would have forgotten to turn on the heat. This room can be pretty cold. I don't think the custodians failed. Maybe something else is going on. Right? Maybe something else is going on. And that we can only have access to when we can stop in the midst of our lives and the flow of judgment and criticism and making it different, to say, what's true right now? And can I then be with it to investigate, how shall I act next? And that's how we have access to that divine light that God extended to us through Torah and through practice. So, thank you. Okay.
We got another 5 minutes.
Great.
Okay. I have a mic. Everything God gave me. I want to interrogate you. Because I love you. And I've always learning with you. And I think these people do too. And I'm an old Jew. And I don't understand in any of this. Now, I'm going to ask you some questions because I want you to go a little deep, and I want you to articulate a few things for us. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, Rabbi Slater. I've been davening my whole life, put tefillin, I wear a talis, I go to shul, I read responsive readings. What does davening have to do with mindfulness? And did you import that from some other religion? Is that Jewish? Is mindfulness Jewish? What is prayer if this is mindfulness? And what is mindfulness compared to what I'm doing in the shul hour after hour?
So, okay, I put on my talis, and somewhere in the middle of the service it says, right, V'asu lachem tzitzit, that you should make tzitzit, uritemoto, and look at it. So, okay, I looked, right? U'scharten kol mitzvotai. Oh my God, I look at this, right? There are 8 strings, there are 5 knots, there's, right, the word tzitzit adds up to 613 mitzvot. Oh my God, uritemoto, and look at it. We have technologies in our practice. We're going to do this in just a few minutes, so stick around, don't, right? But I say, right, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim. You open the eyes. So, okay, I woke up this morning. If I'm going to wake up, my eyes have to open, right? Or otherwise, I'm going to bump into the sink, right? So my eyes are open, so what? Okay, I just go on doing things. No, I say the bracha, pokeach ivrim. Whoa, what does it mean to see, right? When I open my eyes, do I reach out and grab things, or does it come to me? I say, matir asurim, you release the bound, right? In the Talmud and for the Rambam, what that means is I get all tangled up in my sheets, and then I get loose from them in the morning. But it could also be, you know what? I have joints. Look at this, right? That's pretty good. I can reach for things. I have knees. I can bend. I can walk. So that if we stop the brachot, the prayers are constant invitations to pay attention. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, right? May a new light shine upon Zion. The question that I have to ask every morning, what is that light? Where would it come from? And then, v'nizkech ulanu, what would it mean to merit that light? What might it mean to be transparent to that light? We say, Bocher b'yamom Yisrael b'ahava, right? You choose Israel with love. Maybe you choose Israel because of our love, because we're about to say the Shema, v'ahavta, love. Do I love? I can say all those words. I can read. There's a line. It's an old quip. The young yeshiva bachar has finished his daf yomi, but instead of taking 7 and some years, he did it in a year. He finished the whole Gemara in a year. He comes to his Rebbe and he says, Rabbi, I went through the whole Torah. And the Rabbi says to him, the whole of Gemara. The Rabbi says to him, how much of the Gemara went through you? So I can daven. It's important to daven. But I can bring mindfulness to it and allow it to remind me over and over and over again what is important. What am I being asked to pay attention to? So, and that's what the mitzvot are. The Zohar calls the mitzvot itin, which in Hebrew is etzot, right? They are suggestions. They are invitations to awareness. Over and over again, they are ways to connect with God. There's another word that we use, right? It's Aramaic. It's betzavta. Right? We do something together in a community. Tzavta. The same root is used and punned to be mitzvot. What are mitzvot? Mitzvot are access points to connect with God. but only if we pay attention. Right? They are mindfulness instructions. Pay attention. In this moment, the rabbis understand that there's a meal, and then there's a nash. Right? There's achilat keva. You sit down, this is a real meal. And then achilat arai. It just isn't in passing. The question is, if it's in passing, if I walk through the kitchen and there just happens to be a cookie calling to me, if I pick up the cookie and keep walking through the kitchen and it just goes in because it's there and I don't notice it, right? Am I satisfied? But if I pick up the cookie and say, oh my God, there's a cookie. Do I love cookies? Thank you for cookies. Borei minei mezonot. And I really, really then stop and experience the joy that I have in that cookie. The mitzvah of saying the bracha keeps me connected to it. And over again, the mitzvot and the practices of Judaism can be mindfulness instructions. But we have to understand that that's what they're there for. One of the great challenges of this moment, I think, within the conservative movement, I think altogether in Jewish life, is the conversation about mitzvot as being ultimately valuable in themselves or being instrumental. Are they a way to get somewhere? Are they pointers to us for how to live? And if we understand that mitzvot and the system of practice is towards transformation, is to make us those beings who have access to that light and live with that light, then we actually wake up through doing the mitzvot. If, on the other hand, we simply say, I got to be yotze, I got to fulfill my obligation, I'm done, I did it, on to the next thing. Okay, we did it. And that's important. It is important because it's what keeps us together as a people. It's how we come. If we didn't do it, we wouldn't have access to what it offers us, right? So if I never go to the theater, I never know what theater's about. If I go to the theater, it might just go right over my head. But the more I go to the theater, and the more I really pay attention, the more I really appreciate it. So if I don't do this, right, I have no opportunity to get it. But if I do it without asking the question, can it change me? Can I become different? Then there's a real possibility. Another question?
So, tilamdenu ramdenu. So now I have another question for you, okay? So, awareness, spirituality, mindfulness is all in me. And I know people, I've met people whose spiritual lives are so self-directed, they could walk past you on the street and never stop and say hello. Excuse me. And I would like to think that Torah, that Judaism has something to do with the ethics of how I treat other people and my gentleness or responsiveness to other people. So what is the relationship then between what you've spoken about, mindfulness, and a sense of ethics, and a sense of character for other people, and a sense of responsibility for the world?
I'll stand on one foot. No. I can have an idea of being kind. I can even tell myself it's important. But if I'm not connected to my experience, when I walk in here and it's cold, the idea of being kind will be supplanted by, I'm cold, somebody's at fault. And I'll already begin the grumble about who is it. Is it the custodian? So I'll go yell at the custodian. Is it the cantor? Well, I won't sing. Is it the rabbi? I'm going to fall asleep, right? I will come up with some, I'm upset, I'm cold. The idea of kindness is supplanted by the reaction. When I come into a relationship with my experience and can simply say, it's cold, that's my experience, what could be going on, and how can I then conduct myself according to that idea of kindness, it's more likely that I'll do so. There are so many ways in our moments in our lives when all of our best intentions just go out the window. Right? Anybody drive a car? You ever get into the left turn lane? The light turns green. The person in front of you is on their phone. What happens? Immediately, hand's about to go to the horn, right? Can you take another breath before you honk? Because maybe if you honk, they'll just step on the gas and hit another car. Maybe what will happen is you'll honk the horn, they'll have to get off the phone with their wife who's pregnant that they're going to go pick up to take to the hospital, and they'll be upset with themselves and they'll maybe not get home. Who knows? So the idea of being kind has to come into a relationship with the experience in the body-mind so that I have a capacity to actually choose to enact the idea. Part of this is a long piece, but when I witness my own experience, it's cold. I'm cold. It's really uncomfortable to be cold like this. I can't concentrate. Right? When I witness that, I say, but you know what? I came for Torah study. I can be uncomfortable for a period of time and not make anybody else wrong. Because if I come in and I sit like this and I'm cold and I can't, and why doesn't the rabbi and why don't they and this and that, right? I won't be able to study, but more, I will reinforce how unhappy I am. Whereas if I can say, this is what is right now. Either I can go sit out in the courtyard and the sun will warm me up, or I can sit close to somebody and they'll warm me up, or I can be with what's cold and open myself to what is, then because I'm aware of my own experience of dissatisfaction with this moment, I can choose not to be self-occupied, but then extend myself to others. So yes, there are many people who do this practice and only connect to themselves. But the ultimate goal, the purpose of it, is to liberate us from self-absorption so that we can be available to others and to enact what it is that you charged us with Torah.
It's a real joy to learn with Rabbi Slater. Thank you so much. Those who'd like to stay for the meditation session and learning are welcome to stay. There's a bar mitzvah in the sanctuary. You're all invited to that. There's lunch at about 12 o'clock, depends on how long the rabbi speaks in the sanctuary. And then about 12:30 in the youth lounge, Zicklin Youth Lounge, we will be gathering for more learning with Rabbi Slater. We wish everybody a great week. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
See you this week. Thank you. Beautiful.
No. It's really important.
Many of these people have to start back way at the beginning. And you gotta, the vocabulary is strange.